Okay, we'll call to order Monday, September 16th, 2019, Finance and Purchasing Committee. Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkwood.
Here.
Alderman Rivera.
Present.
Alderman Seeger.
Here.
Alderman Newsom.
Present. Item C, approval of the minutes. Take a motion by Alderman Kirkwood, second by Alderman Rivera to accept the minutes, to approve the minutes from August 19th, 2019. All those in favor, or is there any questions? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item D, is there any public comment regarding any item on the agenda? Being none, new business, item A, motion to approve the award of contract to D-Land Construction LLC, the lowest qualified bidder, in order to make sidewalk improvements in an amount of $869,628. This project utilizes 2018 B General Obligation Bond funds. And also, they're doing this, I guess, a little bit different, where they're adding in everything that they have to do. If they have to take out any trees, all the inlets, and then all that information is on a sheet that they supplied in the packet. And this contract is till July 31st, 2020. You're here to speak on that?
That's right.
Okay, and I do have a question. Everything that was approved for last year, has that been taken care of, all the sidewalks?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
2018.
that's no.
There should be a button on the top.
It's on the bottom, take it apart. Take it out.
It's the test of your engineering skills.
This is
Designed by electrical.
He's not a micro engineer.
Oh, civil engineer. Pave over the microphone.
Are there batteries? Are there batteries?
Can I just speak up?
Should
Very loudly, yes.
I don't
We
want
could,
to talk
we could put a mic, I think they tried to get it recorded, I think that's why they wanted to.
Right, speaking in the mic so we can record it.
Defer to the clerk.
It's not, nothing.
Why don't you use this mic here?
Yeah.
Just this one, right?
Yeah, just come right there, please. Thank you.
So the 2018 program is complete,
Okay,
and there is sidewalk improvements in roadway program 1 and roadway program 2. And the sidewalk improvements that you're looking at tonight focuses on ADA ramps around schools, and then I have a report here for which ones, and then some of the brick sidewalks in downtown that'll be removed and replaced with colored stamped concrete.
okay. Now you're able to work up until when on this contract?
The concrete work can go well into the fall.
November?
And the contractor actually has said before that they'll go to Christmas as long as the weather is okay.
Below, above freezing?
They can do cold weather protection,
Okay.
but the concrete, when it comes out warm, it'll last. So they can go all the way to Christmas. And usually we'll have pretty good weather through the fall.
Okay.
It's when we get to January and February that it becomes a problem.
Okay. And then you can pick right back up, they can pick right back up in the spring.
Right, we'll pick up in the spring, and the reason why the contract goes to July is because we didn't want to interrupt operations around the schools, especially if we're doing ADA access. So we want to try to complete the project when school is out in June and through a month. And the contractors confirmed that that's doable. It's the intersections that are, we don't want to interrupt access.
Madam Chairperson?
have a
Alderman
question.
Kirkwood.
In terms of the residential areas, is any of this going to be happening in the residential areas for just normal sidewalks other than ADA ramps?
Well, the schools that are within predominantly residential areas, it's not just ADA ramps, it's sidewalks around the block, so the perimeter of the school. So it would be, you know, stretches of sidewalk in addition to ADA ramps.
That are around the schools. Neighborhoods that are. Okay.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
I just want to add that the colored stamped concrete is on Genesee between Water Street and Grand Avenue, and on Washington between Genesee and County. Thank you. The trip hazards are what is being addressed there. And in the sidewalk program, there are between 10 and 12 schools that are identified, and then the area around the perimeter.
Now, what do we, trip hazards, do we put them kind of like as a priority, getting some of those taken care of? Because I know there's some on Lewis Avenue, by Aldi's, several, and they're raised because of the trees in the parkway. There's 2 or 3 there that are raised, and then there was a couple that were broken up on, up near the Social Security office, and then across the street at by the AutoZone, there was some broken.
So absolutely, the trip hazards are a priority, and however, they're everywhere around the city. We've identified the schools as providing access as a priority for the students. So when we're talking about specific areas, that's when we would want to get a list of improvements that may be required in each ward.
Okay.
So I can't say just go to here or just go to there. And Mike has concrete crews that address smaller areas. And in the sidewalk improvement program, we'll address, you know, thousands of square feet rather than, you know, hundreds.
Okay, are there any more questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkwood,
Yes.
Alderman Rivera,
Aye.
Alderman Seager,
Hi.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye. Did I do a motion?
No.
Motion by Alderman Kirkwood, second by Alderman Rivera.
Would you like me to take roll call again?
Do you need to?
No.
Okay,
Make
all
sure
right.
it sticks.
All right.
Alderman Kirkwood,
Aye.
Alderman Rivera,
Aye.
Alderman Seager,
Aye.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye. Thank you. Item B, motion to approve the award of a contract to Kelso Burnett Company, the lowest qualified bidder, in order to make street lighting improvements at Norman Drive and North Point Boulevard in the amount of $258,580. This project utilizes 2018 B general obligation bonds. Motion by Alderman Seager, second by Alderman Kirkwood. And in this Norman Drive area, this includes lights and wiring, 12 poles, I understand. And then on North Point Boulevard, there's 17 light poles that include wire and lighting as well. Are there any questions on this motion?
Yeah.
Alderman
Is
Rivera.
this an aesthetic type of an improvement, or is it an improvement because we're upgrading?
Actually, what it boils down to is, the poles are starting to fail. They're aluminum, and over the years with the salt and such, it's corroded to the point where we felt, number one, it would be a good improvement for the area, And number 2 is we're going to all LED. So we'll be replacing poles, and also the underground wiring has started to fail as well. So this will be a bigger improvement. And the whole idea is by doing this, we're going to start saving money because the LED at this point in time, I think they're halogen. So we're spending more money for lighting. So that's what we're going to be doing with some of the bond money this year, is to go through and try to do some lighting in areas so that we can save money in the future, use it today to save to future. So, okay.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Alderman Kirkwood.
I have a question for you. In terms of is ComEd working in conjunction in making sure that this is the best way to go in terms of the LED prior to what we were using before?
On these particular lights, this is our lighting. So what we did was, what was there was replaced with a better quality. We own the lights and the poles. ComEd has nothing to do with it. We just actually pay for electricity on these. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Rivera,
Aye.
Alderman Seager,
Aye.
Alderman Kirkland,
Aye.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye, motion carried. Item C, motion to grant an exception to the competitive bidding process pursuant to Section 2-458, subsection I-8 Utilities, and approve the award of a contract to Comcast Enterprise Services in the amount of $412,800 for the period of November 1, 2019 to November 1, 2024 to provide dedicated fiber optics connections from City Hall to the water plant and fire stations. Motion by Alderman Rivera, second by Alderman Seager.
Chairman, we need to amend this motion.
Okay,
The fire stations are already covered by a contract that the 911 board approved a couple of months ago.
okay.
So the reference to "and fire station" should be removed, and then the total amount should change from $412,800 to $320,125. So 320,125.
320,125.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion by Alderman Rivera, second by Alderman Seager. Well, we do make a motion to amend. Motion to amend to in the amount of $320,125 and to take out the fire stations. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Now, motion by Alderman Rivera, second by Alderman Seager to approve as amended the motion. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Seager,
Aye.
Alderman Rivera,
Aye.
Alderman Kirkwood,
Aye.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye, motion carried. Item D, motion to grant an extension to the contract award to Strategic IT Staffing LLC on November 19th, 2018 for a total amount of $108,000 and a revised end date of April 30th, 2020 in order to provide IT staff augmentation services. Motion by Alderman Kirkwood, second by Alderman Rivera. And I know we approved this before, so the amendment is this to add that person?
I think it's extending the contract.
Yes, it's a renewal for last year.
Yeah.
Okay, and this goes to 2020.
And we planned for it?
Sorry?
We planned for this, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So that we're extending that at the same amount as the last
Correct.
contract. Okay. Any more questions on this motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkwood,
Aye.
Alderman Rivera,
Aye.
Alderman Seager,
Aye.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye. Motion carried. Item E, motion to grant an exception to the competitive bidding process pursuant to Section 2-458, subsection I-3 Government Joint Purchasing Act, and approve the award of a contract to Curry Motors Chevrolet in the amount of $295,000 for the purchase of 8 2019 Ford Chevy Tahoe SUVs and a contract to Harvey Communications to equip the acquired SUVs with a certain police equipment, an amount not to exceed $95,000. Motion by Alderman Kirkwood, second by Alderman Seager. And all of this will come out of the asset forfeiture funds in the police department. Are there any questions to this motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Rivera,
Aye.
Alderman Seager,
Aye.
Alderman Kirkwood,
Aye.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye, motion carried. Item F, motion to approve the attached resolution for maintenance prepared by the city engineer and filed with Illinois Department of Transportation as required by the Illinois Highway Code for the period of January 1 to December 31, 2019. Motion by Alderman Rivera, second by Alderman Seager. You want to talk to that, Ms.?
Frank's here if you have any
Oh,
questions.
okay.
This is something that we do every year. It's required by state statute. So we do an educated guess at how much we're going to spend from the motor fuel tax, and then at the end of the year, we true it up. But Frank can certainly answer any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions to this motion? No questions? So you're good. Thank you. Thanks for being here. All right, roll call, please.
Alderman Seager.
Aye.
Alderman Kirkwood.
Aye.
Alderman Rivera.
Aye.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye, motion carried. No old business, new business, reports and communications. And I'm gonna let you take that away.
In your packet, there is a rate increase notification from Lake County Public Works. The city of Waukegan has a very long-standing contract with the county. We bill and collect on their behalf. So for those of you who have residents or businesses that are in Lake County Public Works as opposed to North Shore Sanitary, they will notice an increase in their sewer rates, and you may feel free to refer those calls to the county board.
Oh, boy.
Keep moving.
Okay.
Item B, Moody Investor Service Credit Opinion Report for the City of Waukegan.
So rating agencies now, we get a rating every time we issue bonds or do a refinancing, but they will do what they call surveillance calls from time to time. And we were in the queue for that. So our ratings were maintained as an A2 for both our general obligation as well as our water bonds. The reports are included in your packet. It makes for some interesting reading and also is a good guideline just how we could potentially improve our rating or our financial position. So I thought those would be of interest. Happy to answer any questions if you have any of those.
Item C, water consumption summary.
We provide this every month, and this is the water bill by month, by category. When we get to the budget to actual, I was going to touch on this a little bit. Our consumption, billed consumption, is down compared to last year in the spring and summer. So we will be drilling down on a per cycle basis to see what exactly is driving that reduced consumption. If it's billable, it might be a software issue. It might be a particular customer, it might just be across the board. So we are seeing a slight decrease in consumption. So as soon as we have those results, we'll be sure to report them.
Okay, item D.
Business and rental license applications are included in your reports every month. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer those.
Madam Chairman,
Alderman Kirkwood.
in terms of our business and rental licenses, is there a way of checking to make sure that every business in the city of Waukegan has a license?
A way to check it in what way?
In terms of, as I go through the ward, how do I know if someone actually has a license from the city?
They should be able to provide a copy of their license. They should have that on hand and readily displayed. You can also contact either finance department or the building department. Either of us can look that up if they have a business license, they need to have a certificate of occupancy to have a business license. So you can check with either department. We do depend on our code enforcement and building department to keep an eye out for that and flag that in case there is a business that's not operating, or that's operating without a license, to, you know, alert that business owner that they do need to make application.
Okay, thank you.
Are you finished talking on that business license?
Yes, unless
Okay,
there's other questions.
okay, item E.
The video gaming report, this is a report we do download from the state gaming board every month. And it does provide the gaming activity for the video gaming terminals by location. I texted him to see if I left my notes on it. That's good enough. I'll use this. I'll use this. Sorry about that. So
No
if there's any
problem.
questions about the video gaming report?
Okay, item F, food and beverage.
So
And
this
hotel.
is a little bit of a different format than you've been seeing. We have switched over our database from an Excel database to an Access database. So it's a little easier for staff to use and monitor. So it's the same information, just in a little bit different of a format. So there's both food and beverage reported here as well as the hotel tax.
Easier to read.
And we did drop off some restaurants or that hadn't, you know, paid in years. They were still on the old report, so this will be a little bit easier on the eyes.
Thank you. And G.
So the
Stabilization.
stabilization report, this is essentially our rainy day fund. It's monitored by resolution. And we require 8% of general fund expenditure held in restricted fund balance. I'm not sure it's in these Moody reports or not, but industry standard is usually 20 to 33%, so we're a little light on that. Regardless, we do meet our resolution. Our unrestricted balance over the required is $2 million. We will 695, we set up a new internal service fund for the IT department, so that will get paid back shortly. That was just to get that fund started. It does get reimbursed by the operating funds. Fund 231 is we are waiting for reimbursement from FEMA on some fire department equipment purchases that were made for a grant.
Okay. And the budget to actual report.
So the budget to actual report, I apologize, that just got posted today for the month ended of August. I did want to touch on some items of interest for the end of the fiscal quarter. As the committee is very well aware, the general fund budget was adopted with a $3.6 million operating deficit. We projected revenues of $71.4 million and expenses of $75.01. So even if departments are spending within their budgeted plan, we do encourage them to try to spend less than that amount so that we can eat into that deficit, maybe not end up the year with a deficit. Our revenues at the end of the quarter were actually up 5% from the prior fiscal year. A lot of what is driving that is income tax and personal property replacement tax being higher than the previous year. There was a big blip in those revenues that are shared with the state. The Department of Revenue, as well as the Illinois Municipal League, is all cautioning, however, to not expect that trend to continue. When the income tax structure changed, there was an inflow of dividends and capital gains that were reported. So that came into the fund. I think it's been on the news a bit too. As refunds get issued or people dispute their taxes, that should normalize. So there was kind of an uptick, but that should normalize. Telecommunication and utility taxes are trending slightly behind last fiscal year. Those are very dependent on the economy. But home rule sales tax, and local sales tax are trending they're trending higher than last year. And this is even with the $500,000 we take out of the home rule sales tax to subsidize the parking fund. So while we're seeing a dip in telecommunications and utility taxes, that's kind of being made up for with the sales tax trending. The one area I did want to point out is that our franchise fees continue to decline dramatically year over year. Customers have ways for entertainment other than cable TV, and that's going to continue. So this used to be a rather robust revenue for the city. It continues to decline double digits every year. So when it comes to budget discussions in a couple months here, this may be an area or a revenue that the city may want to look at replacing, because we just don't see the trends continuing for a long term. On the expense side, we were about 1% behind the prior fiscal year. Some areas that I do want to note, we did make a large lump sum payment relative to Yeoman Creek. We may have an additional $100,000 obligation that may have to be made to the remediation group before the end of the fiscal year, so we did not budget sufficiently for that. So we might have to do a little adjusting there. The building department looks like it's trending very well. However, I would just remind everyone that the SEIU contract is expired, and the majority of the staff in the building department is covered by that contract. The code enforcement officers, clerical, et cetera. So again, similar to what I've been preaching with the IFF contract, the wages look good because they're getting paid on last year's wage scale. The fire department, let me skip ahead, actually. I'm going to skip ahead to insurance. So, medical and dental insurance. It is trending higher than last fiscal year, even though we had a reduction or a stay in premiums. And so we do feel, Tamika and I, our HR director and I have been talking about this. We are concerned that we will be exceeding our budgets in this area. She's drilling down into the numbers with our insurance broker, and I will be able to follow up with everyone on this by the time of our next meeting. We believe there was a significant migration from due to the PBLC contract. So in January, when there was open enrollment, it looks like PBLC members, which accounts for about 100 of our employees, migrated from the less expensive HMO plan, when they were paying 20%, to the more expensive PPO plan, because now they're paying 10%. So it's still less expensive to the employee, but it's much more expensive for us. So we increased our employer contribution from 80 to 90. We anticipated some migration from the less expensive to more expensive plans, but not at this rate. We're also seeing tier changes where we have employees adding family members where they did not have those family members previously on the plan. So perhaps an unintended consequence of changing that 90-10, that 80-20 structure to 90-10. So this is another area where the departments are going to have to make modifications. We already had a deficit budget, so we're going to be looking to transfer budget out of other line items to cover that. There's no drawer filled with cash to make up for that. So IFF also changed for the firefighters from 80-20 to 90-10. That was effective with this paycheck in September. They will have an opportunity to change plans in January as well. And then SEIU is the only contract still open, other than Local 150 that has a union health insurance plan. SEIU is the only remaining employee group that's 80-20, so I would anticipate that they might be migrating as well. So that's an area that we need to watch. PSEBA, which is the health insurance for disabled police and firemen, that comes out of the general fund. It was already at 32% of the fiscal year when we were only a quarter of the way through the fiscal year. So again, an area that continues to track at a higher rate than inflation. We pay 100% of the premiums. And I don't know how much control the city has over those disability approvals, but that's an area as well. On the upside, workers' compensation is down. So that's trending very well. I think that's attributed to having a full-time risk manager on staff. And one other area to keep an eye on is overtime. Police, fire, and public works are the big overtime users in the general fund. Public works is trending about the same as they were last year, but we'll see how the snow is. That's, we don't have too much overtime. On the sewer side we have because of water main breaks, but our overtime in Public Works usually happens around snow season. The fire department at last year at the end of the quarter had expended $183,000 in overtime. At the end of the quarter this year, they were at $311,000. So that was a 70% uptick in overtime. The wage scales were the same because, again, the contract hadn't been approved yet. So this is not due to an adjustment in wages. You might have had some step increases, but you certainly didn't have an across-the-board wage increase. Police department up 5% in spending and overtime, and their wage scale only went up 2.5%. So I've reached out to leadership of both departments and asked them to, take a look at that and be contemplative of that going forward. Some other issues to touch on is the capital, and I'm glad to see that we have our contracts getting awarded. At the end of the quarter, we only had expended 12% of the capital budget. And that's actually cash out the door, not necessarily contract awards. So our goal should be to try to have the funds expended by April 30th. This is the last year of these bond proceeds, or into June, July is okay. But when you issue bonds, if you don't expend it within 36 months, then you have the potential of having to pay a rebate to the IRS. You issue tax exempt, so they don't want you investing money or sitting on it. It can then deem the bonds taxable. So we may have to worry about rebate. On the capital side, the GO bonds, I'm not too worried about it. I think those will all be spent by summer. On the water side, however, very little of the capital money had been spent. Of the $14 million budgeted, we had only spent $144,000 at the end of the quarter, and that was on engineering fees. So again, something that needs to be monitored. Some other issues, and Mike and I have been working on this, Mike Hewitt, and I might put him on the spot and ask him to speak to this, our garbage collection fund is trending higher than budget and more than we levied. From what I understand, there were some vacant homes that were identified and we are now being billed for.
It's not on now.
My apologies. We're under construction.
Work in progress.
Avail yourself.
1 Yard Electronics. I know it wasn't me. Actually, what happened is they hit us for roughly 1,000 homes that were not figured in. Apparently, what happened is every year they rolled over some number, and we went out and we investigated it. We sent one of our employees out with an advanced driver, and that's pretty much where we're at. The only thing I can say is, as we go along, what we're looking to do is see if we can reduce it in some way, because it seems like certain apartments were getting it for free, so we're trying to adjust. But at this point in time, it looks like that's pretty close to the number, and that increased our expenditures by about $25,000 a month.
Right.
And then also, looking at our problems will be down the future is the gas tax, which is 30 cents a gallon, which they're going to probably incur. Also, recycling is an issue at this point in time because there is no real revenue on it. So we're looking for an increase conceivably this coming year, and we've talked about that, so, all right.
Yeah, so we're estimating about $450,000 to $500,000 over what was anticipated because of the additional locations. And then the gas, I think they get to pass that on to us in the contract, right?
Right, and what happened was I'm not anticipating, but I would rather be prepared than have a budget shortfall, because if they do that, plus there may be labor increases, they're allowed to pass those on to us. I would rather be safe, and like this year, we didn't anticipate the $300,000 increase with homes. So I want to try to build in something so we can take care of any increases. All right.
So were those homes that weren't originally accounted for, or? Because I know that in the beginning of the fiscal year, we asked, or we were looking at, are they charging us for homes that nobody lives there and there is no physical pickup? And so that's where we began to get.
Right, I think what a lot of these numbers were based on when the housing slump came and the amount of homes that were vacant. The other issue is I really have to get onto the third floor to monitor any homes that are vacant. We can reduce them, we can take away for, you know, if they're vacant for a month or 2 months. So we'll save there. Also on leaf pickup, if nobody living there, they're not putting leaves out to the curb. So this is something I think that we're going to try to monitor. And maybe what I'll do is have one of my employees go around and watch and see how many actual garbage cans are picked up and see if we can't reduce some of the numbers. But, you know, it's kind of tough.
So you think the foreclosure program that we're instituting is going to help with identifying those up front?
We're hoping to. Okay, but what happened was they had the major foreclosures, and those numbers were figured in like 5 years ago or 4 years ago, and for whatever reason, yeah, they weren't really added back in. Okay, and I think, like I said, in some of these, I think we've been adding to, not realizing we added to, like apartments over on.
Williamsburg, Georgetown, I was gonna ask you about that.
Right, so
Townhomes and-
what we have to do is start to make adjustments on those, okay? But we gotta notify people, you just can't take garbage cans away if they've been receiving it for how many years. And then what I also am thinking is, if you buy a garbage can, they may be including that, so it's a nightmare.
It might be an area worth auditing. I mean, it's a $4.5 million expense, so,
Okay.
but Mike was very proactive in letting me know. So there's really no way to adjust for it this year because it is separately levied for. So if we run into a cash crunch, we might need to make a loan out of the stabilization fund and then address it with the levy coming up in December.
And that's what I felt with going with that particular increase should cover us, so we won't have this. It seems like every year we're a little off. This way we should be able to be in a good position. I'd like to think.
And the recycling we used to get a big credit for, there's no market for it.
Correct.
So no one's buying the recycling, so we're not getting the credits we did.
Actually, there's a problem with it right now. There's not cardboard, all of us not, there is some with the TVs, some aluminum, but very minimal. We're not even seeing a return. It cost us to ship it and get rid of it, so. All right.
Thank you, Mike. Motor fuel tax, the tax increase that went in June 1st or July 1st that the state implemented, it's a little hazy whether or not we're going to see a benefit from that at the city level. For those of you attending the Illinois Municipal League, I'm sure that they'll be talking about that. Depends who you talk to. I see Frank smiling. The formula for MFT share is very black box and mysterious. So the increase in the tax, the 19 cents I think it was, is going to capital projects. Those are state capital projects, not city capital projects. But the latest assessment by the Illinois Municipal League is that we could see up to a 50% increase in our motor fuel tax. I wouldn't bet on it. So we'll monitor that. We should start seeing those revenues coming in September. I'm not sure how that's going to pan out, but we will be monitoring it. But at this time, since there's nothing definitive, I wouldn't recommend adjusting our revenue estimates. And then the last little piece to talk about is our parking fund. Our parking fund has seen an 11% decline in revenues over the prior fiscal year. Parking meters, paid lots, and our garage is the source for this. We continue to subsidize the fund with home rule sales tax. Started off about $150,000 a year, now it's in the $400,000 per year amount. So again, this is an area that we're seeing a declining revenue, and that we are monitoring that.
I have a question regarding the Genesee Theater parking. Who, the valet or whatever parking they have, who, are we in charge of that company that does parking for the theater or what?
The police department handles all of the parking matters, insourced and outsourced. So I'm not sure if they are still using advanced valet for that. That's who we have used in the past. Or if they allow the theater to staff it. but that's something I can certainly ask the chief to respond.
Yeah, I wanted to find out because
Unless, I don't, do you know, Madam Clerk? I'm not.
I believe they're still under contract.
and that's under the police department?
Yes.
And those funds go where?
Into the parking fund, Fund 595.
Okay. Is there anyone that monitors that? Because, I mean, I've heard, that maybe they may be charging, some of the parkers may be charging a fee that's different than what,
What was in city code?
you know.
All of our parking fees are in our city code of ordinances, so that is what people should be getting charged. And if they're not getting charged that amount, that's not right. But that would be something under the police department, under the chief. I believe that Commander Beach is the one that handles all the parking matters, so I'll certainly follow up with him and ask him about that.
Okay, is there a certain fee? Because I sit on the police board, so they were questioning how
Right.
much.
I thought it was set by city code and that parking fees couldn't be modified unless it came. Am I right, Madam Clerk? Do you remember? There's language that there can be certain modifications for a particular event or short term, but it
I don't know. I do know the attorneys were looking at it last winter, and we gave them all the contracts, but that's, I couldn't tell you.
Okay, all right,
I'll follow up with the chief on that.
all right, thanks.
Just how much is a parking fee?
I'm not sure. There's a different fee for the garage, and then there's a fee that is charged to someone that pulls up and they valet park for them. And I'm not sure what that fee is, but some were saying that some people were charged a different fee than other people. So I don't know if.
They advertise $15 for the,
Event parking?
And then some will say, well, I only paid them 10. Or somebody said, well, they charged me 15, so where's the other 5 going, or whatever, so I don't know.
It could be that they're parking them in a private lot. Again, that should be a licensed, monitored business if that's occurring, but maybe the police department's aware of that, I'm not sure. But I'll follow up and report back at the next committee meeting.
All right, thank you. Is there any more?
Email and the contracts that I sent to Mr. Long, I'll forward them to you right now.
Okay then, all right, thanks. If there's no more questions, take a motion by Alderman Rivera, second by Alderman Kirkwood, to adjourn at 5:50 p.m. All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.